Knowledge graph is really a network of things and how they're related. And this, it's what Google is basing search on in the future. Google's knowledge graph is based on Google is basing search, betting search on knowledge graphs. Anyone use LinkedIn here? Knowledge graph. Anyone use Alexa? Knowledge graph. Google Home? Knowledge graph. We can keep going. That's how this happens. This stuff is important. It's changing the way we do search. So what is a knowledge graph? And we like to break it into component parts. And I'm talking more, not talking about Alexa here, right? Going to talk a bit more about what you might see in your own enterprise. It's built on a couple things. You start with your content sources. And here's what's neat. In the old days when we did search, we'd write indexing routines and put it in our search tool. And you couldn't really read that because it was an index. It wasn't meant to work with. Knowledge graphs are built on graph databases. Databases, things we know how to query and work with, right? Very powerful. So we look for those data sources for which we want to pull information out of. We still do taxonomies. My business partner has always been a taxonomist, and I used to joke with him that's old school. But the reality is you really cannot do this without having good, strong ways to classify information. You still need to classify it. Now you're talking about relationships, but you're classifying it. All this gets modeled in a business ontology. So an ontology is, and I've heard people confuse taxonomies and ontologies, and I really want to call out the difference here because it's important. An ontology is a model of the way things are related to one another. A taxonomy is a set of categorized lists, potentially hierarchical, that allow you to categorize your information. They work well together. Don't do one without the other, but make sure you understand that the two are different. Now, graph databases, they're I think in the last slide, they're supposed to grow by 200% in the next few years. Anyone ever heard of the term triple store? Okay, you know what it is? Do you know why it's called that? So not everyone did. The reason it's called a triple store is because you store three pieces of information. Subject, predicate, object, right? So I work for a consulting firm. What do I care about? I care about people, our team. I care about our customers. These are things, right? I care about the projects they're on, right? So Joe Hilger is a person who works on, that's the predicate, that's the relationship, such and such a project, right? So you get all these techies saying, oh, it's a triple store, this and that. That's what this is about. So the content sources are where you get your information. Taxonomy is how you categorize it. Ontology is really the modeling and design, and the graph database is where you store it. Together, you've got a knowledge graph. So let's talk about knowledge graphs in relation to search and why they're helpful. I like to think there's four primary drivers that really enhance search. The first is understanding context. Wouldn't it be nice to know that I'm a person when you search for me? Right? Or that this is a building? That seems like that would improve search. Natural language search. I talked about Alexa. I talked about Google Home. You understand that if you start storing information, subject, predicate, object, and we did this for some clients. They're like, okay, you've done this. Now we want a chatbot. Now we want natural language search. We're like, okay. We're already storing it that way. The way you speak is how you do this. This is why Google and everyone is using this advantage. Structured and unstructured information. How many times have we been sold the idea that we can mix structured and unstructured information, right? And you go, well, where is that? How's that happen? Well, remember, in a knowledge graph, you can write a report. That's a thing. Is based on. That's a predicate. This data set, it's another thing. Now I can start to say, here's the report, here's the associated data set. This is a tool that allows you to really manage this and pull it together. And lastly, aggregation. I can pull from all these sources and have it in a managed place where I can get all this stuff to work together.